Good day, loves, and we are going to continue the OSS Morale Operations Field Manual. We are at Section 5, Planning. And just to let you know, we have cleared up the copyright issues with the music. There should be no further copyright issues with the music. And the manual itself is in the public domain, as are most field manuals. All federal field manuals are in the public domain. And this one is declassified. Let us continue. Section V, Planning, General. A, Nomenclature. We are at number 26, page 33, bottom of page 33. For convenience in planning, the meaning of the following or general terms are indicated below, and you can find this on the CIA Reading Room. Just search Google for Morale Operations Field Manual. 1. Overall Program for Strategic Services Activities, a collection of objectives in order of priority importance within a theater or area. 2. Objective, a main or controlling goal for accomplishment within a theater or area by strategic services as set forth in an overall program. 3. A special program for strategic services activities, a group of detailed missions assigned to one or more strategic services branches designed to accomplish an objective, having also a general statement of the situation and the general methods of accomplishment. 4. Mission. One or more subsidiary goals set forth in a special program together result in an accomplishment of an objective, and are usually assigned to one strategic service branch. Operational plan, an amplification or elaboration of a special program containing in greater detail the means of carrying out the specific activities. 6. Task, a detailed operation usually planned in the field directed towards the accomplishment of a mission. 7. Target, an individual, place, establishment, person, or individual which is involved in the accomplishment of a task or result desired. 8. The field, all areas outside the United States in which strategic services activities take place, but for within, for the uses we are using it for, that would be within the United States. I guess without the United States too, if we're coordinating with allied countries and other resistance groups internationally, which we are. We made sure of that. And we want them to know that. Field base, an OSS headquarters in the field designated by the name of the city in which it is established. Ergo, OSS Field Base, Cairo. I don't think Cairo exists anymore. I don't think any of the OSS field bases exist anymore since it was all disbanded. But they used to like to sit people in Cairo when it wasn't in operation, just to have them sit and chill. They did that to Granville. She got pissed having to sit in Cairo and do nothing. And other people got pissed about her sitting in Cairo and doing nothing. Until eventually people were like, you know what, fuck this, we're reinstating her. I have the authority, I'm doing it. I'm not waiting for somebody else. And they said that was the greatest thing that they had ever done in the war. And it took a woman, because the men weren't going to do it. Don't fuck with the girls. Advance or subbase. In addition, an additional base established by and responsible to an OSS field base, operative, an individual employed by and responsible to the OSS and assigned under special programs to field activity. Agent, an individual recruited in the field who is employed and directed by an OSS operative or by a field or subbase. 13. Cover, an open status assumed or bona fide which serves to conceal the secret activities of an operative or agent. 14. Cutout, a person who forms a communicating link between two individuals for security purposes. You're going to have to learn about those. 15. Resistance groups, individuals associated together in enemy-held territory to injure the enemy by any or all means short of military operations, ergo by sabotage, espionage, non-cooperations. 16. Guerrillas, an organized band of individuals in enemy-held territory, indefinite as to number, which conducts against the enemy irregular operations, including those of military or quasi-military nature. Strategic tasks. In deciding the general morale operation strategy for a given territory, the major subversive tasks most suitable to the situation existing in the area are selected. Below are listed the major tasks which may achieve the MO objective within the areas cited in Section 1, Paragraph 3. Within the enemy country, dividing the enemy, and this includes turning the enemy, inducing panic in enemy populations, strengthening the enemy's civilians' desire for peace and raising false hopes, subverting the enemy civilians' populations during a ground offensive within enemy occupied or controlled territory, a promotion of resistance and revolt against the enemy, interfering with the enemy's consolidation and use of occupied countries' capabilities. C. Producing civilian disorder in support of military operations. D. Increasing terror, friction, and demoralization among collaborationists. E. Provoking rebellion or coup d'etat in satellite country or inducing its separation from the Axis. 3. Within other areas. A. Establishing a MO section of a base in a neutral country for operations in enemy and enemy-dominated countries. B. Assisting the chief of the diplomatic mission in special work requested by him. B. Assisting the chief of the diplomatic... Oh, we already did that one. 4. Within the enemy armed forces in all areas, fostering rebelliousness within enemy armed forces, inducing surrender. I'm going to say, turning them to our side. Within OSS Washington and theaters, within OSS and Washington, all over planning for and servicing of field operations. B. Assistance desired by the theater commander. 27. Basic principles of planning. All plans prepared by MO must be for the purpose of attaining the purpose of the overall program for a given theater or area and for the special MO programs pertaining thereto. In such implementation, the following general principles should be observed. A. Suitable objectives. Successful planning and execution of MO tasks required that specific MO objectives be clearly delineated. These objectives are those which, when fully achieved, produce the most damaging morale disrupting effects upon the enemy. B. Feasibility. Only those MO tasks are planned in which all the operations required to accomplish the objectives are practical of execution within the means OSS possesses or can reasonably expect to obtain from theater commander and other cooperating agencies or media. So don't try and do things you don't have the means to do yet. There is a saying that they used in the early days of resistance during World War II. They would say, go slow, slow and steady. Don't try and rush ahead of the game. Don't move beyond your capabilities. You can have ideas, you can have plans, but don't move beyond your capabilities. If you have plans for which you do not have the capabilities, you bring those capabilities up before you try to initiate that plan. Or you try to modify that plan to the means which you do have. Acceptability. All subversive operations should lie within the scope of MO policy as authorized and should justify the cost involved. Since MO activities by their nature are deceptive and not attributable to any official or semi-official, the United States or United Nations agency, morale operations need not conform to the public statements of policy. However, they should be so planned and executed as not to jeopardize the United States of war policy or United Nations war policy if you want sponsorship. Which is why we are going over the Geneva Conventions and Rules of War. Why we won't just be going over the United States rules of war, but the international rules of war as set down by the United Nations. And that's a chonky handbook. So, continuing. Offensive. In general, MO tasks should consist of aggressive, determined, continuous, and unrelieved action against the enemy. Timing and pacing. The military, especially the political and social situation in which the task is to be carried out, should be carefully studied and the subversive action planned for the exact time, when, place, and where its total effect will be greatest. 28. Overall MO plans. All subversive operations in a given territory should be in conformity with an objective in a special program. MO should prepare MO plans for the implementation of the special forces programs. And although no rigid form is necessary for such plans, the MO section of it should, in conformity with the basic principles listed above, contain the following. A brief statement of the missions and special programs that MO is charged to accomplish. B. A succinct survey of the situation, including only data that has direct bearing on the MO tasks which will carry out the stated missions. This survey would normally include summaries of the military situation, of the capabilities of the enemy, and the capabilities of MO and its cooperating agencies and media. C. A listing of the proposed tasks or course of action which will achieve the stated missions. If necessary, order of priority should be given and any timing or placing requirements. The cooperative relation of these tasks to military operations, to their strategic service operations, to subversive strategic plans of allied partners, and when relevant to MO plans in other territories and theaters should be shown. It is to be assumed that all the tasks have been checked for acceptability, but if any question is to be anticipated, a statement clearing up the matter should be included. D. A statement of requirements for the projected tasks, including and indications that arrangements for carrying out all the necessary operations have been made. E. If necessary, a statement of any important contingencies that may seriously alter the plan and how these contingencies will be met. Tactical principles. Tactics are the particular are the particular moral operations necessary to carry out the general tasks laid down in the overall MO basic plans. Operational planning requires decisions on what specific tasks are to be arranged and precisely when and where the job is to be done, what specific operatives, agents, and collaborating persons are to be employed, what particular persons or groups are the objects of subversive action, and what implements are necessary. B. Originality, knowledge of the situations, enterprise, and practical judgment determine good tactics. Nevertheless, specific courses of subversive action are always more effective if governed by a few simple principles. If these are ignored, results are often ineffective or wasteful, if not disastrous. Always remember, playing with people's heads can seriously backfire against you. I am proof of that. I am the backfire against people who use shit to play with my head. And what did I do? I watched them, and I observed, and I learned, and I read, and I have been slowly implementing my vengeance. Hello, loves. Vengeance is sweet. Principle of strategy apply equally to tactics, those of objective, offensive, timing and placing, feasibility, and acceptability. In addition, there are a few principles dealing specifically with subversive tactics. D. Most work of this kind involves inducing individuals or special groups to think, feel, and finally to act wittingly or unwittingly, willingly or unwillingly, in a desired manner. To get them to act requires inciting them to act by so capitalizing on strong desires and emotions that they see and feel real personal or group advantages in acting despite of the personal danger involved, and presenting the lines of action in the proper ways so they know clearly what should be done and find it within their means to do so. Getting people to act is not entirely a matter of intuition. A few broad principles are known to practitioners. 1. Simplicity. Proposed ideas or actions should be simple and clear and presented in a form easy to remember. 2. Plausibility and feasibility. The proposed ideas or actions should be within the understanding of the persons or groups approached. The desired work should be action they feel or are led to feel they can actually carry out. Suggestion, especially in deception. Proposed ideas or actions are usually more effective when presented by indirections, so that persons or groups are led to believe they have arrived at their own conclusions and that they voluntarily participate in the work. That is the master class right there. This is something my grandmother would tell me all the time. This is something my grandmother would tell me as how you fucking deal with the men, how you deal with the husbands, how you up manage. Let me read it to you again. Suggestion, especially in deception. Proposed ideas or actions are usually more effective when presented by indirection, so that persons or groups are led to believe they have arrived at their own conclusions and that they voluntarily participate in the work. Masters do that. That is a woman's game. Women are the best at that because for centuries, that was the only way they could do anything, was by making a man think it was his idea. Women, use your brains, use your assets. Women make excellent morale operatives. They make excellent morale agents because they know these games. This is a woman's war right here. This is how women wage war, have for centuries. Let's get back to it. Incitement and inducement. Many persons or groups who will do effective MO work are already have a strong desire for action. Verbal appeals to their own self-interest are likely to sound naive to them. They need little incitement. What they need is encouragement, guidance, and above all, support or subsidy. Fence sitters, collaborationists, and enemy personnel with low morale can be induced to act subversively only if strongly impelled to do so in their immediate future or self-interest. Most people will only work, many people will only work for their self-interests. You need to learn to play to people's self-interests, but there are a select few, like I said earlier, where playing to their self-interest will get you nowhere because they see right through what you're doing. And they go, I'm sorry, but I don't need you. And I don't care for whatever it is you're doing. And I see through you. Those people are actually very valuable. Very valuable. To those people, you just speak directly and plainly. Don't try to manipulate. Like, it will backfire. Again, I am living proof of this. Do not try and manipulate people who are smart enough to see through it. It will backfire. It will backfire stupendously. It is better to speak directly to people like that. If you try to lie to people like that, they will see through you. If not immediately, then eventually. They will immediately feel that something's off about you. And when a person like that feels like something's off about you, they won't work with you. They won't work with somebody who they feel is being deceitful to them. They won't work with somebody who they know is trying to manipulate them. So when you come across something like that, and you're trying to induce or something like that, and they just pull off their glasses and look you in the eye and go, really? Just be fucking direct. Be straightforward. Don't try and manipulate people you can't manipulate. Ask them what they need of you. Fence sitters' collaboration and enemy personnel with low morale can be induced to act subversively only if strongly impelled to do so in their immediate or future self-interest. It is necessary, therefore, to discover what will impel them to act in terms of these impelling emotions and desires to use suggestions, bribery, or blackmail to induce action. In particular, the following should be exploited. fears, anxieties, hatreds, feelings of discrimination, grievances, and mysticisms. 2. Hopes and desires for personal gain. 3. Concepts of right and wrong. 4. Social position, prestige, face, vanity. 5. Desire for personal security. Operational plans. A. The MO section officer should. Look, I'm going to change this song because it's some weird Dadaist stuff there, which I like, but it's unsettling. Okay. The MO section officer should delegate staff personnel to draw up detailed plans for every important MO tactical operation. These plans will show how the projected morale operations implement the approved special programs or directive based thereon. These plans should be as detailed as possible, for they constitute a blueprint of action. They should be written in order to ensure that all the important details have been considered to facilitate conferring with collaborating personnel who are directly involved in the operations to permit approval by strategic services officers and to provide for the briefing of operatives and agents who will put the plan into effect. C. Responsibility for the development of the details of operational plans lie within the MO section officer. These plans will implement the MO programs. The implementation study sent from Washington will be useful in formulating these programs, as well as specific information on which these plans are based to obtain in the theater base are based. Okay. These plans will be implemented the MO programs. These plans will implement the MO programs. The implementation studies sent from Washington will be useful in formulating these programs, as well as specific information on which these plans are based obtained in the theater base from SI and RA representatives from G2, A2, ONI, GICA, and from allied sources. The nature of the problem will determine the form of an operational plan. It should, however, include the following. 1. A precise delineation of the MO targets of the operation with a brief statement indicating how the particular targets are, under the circumstances, the most suitable in implementing the special program. 2. An adequate survey of intelligence bearing on the problem, including only such matters as collaborating personnel and MO must know in order to execute the projected task. 3. Complete detailing of all the important operations required. Progressive steps in the action should be indicated, showing the times when and places where action will occur, specific persons and groups involved, nature of cover, specific use of MO implements, and the coordination of them, probable enemy counteraction to be anticipated, and how it is to be met. To ensure that all the operations are feasible, sufficient in detail should be included, showing the requirements of the operation and how they are to be met, covering such matters as equipment, communication, transportation, supplies, liaisons, and the selections of briefings of operatives and agents. General. Section 7. Operations. 31. General. Bottom of page 40. This section describes the subversive operations which may be especially suitable in carrying out the strategic tasks of MO as set forth in Section 6, paragraph 26b. B. Under each of these strategic tasks, there is presented a statement of mission and of practical principles which may be helpful in planning and directing these operations. C. This section does not attempt to show the detailed administration of personnel engaged in the subversive operations to accomplish these strategic tasks. In general, however, the Strategic Services Officer will administer the personnel engaged in all morale operations, including MRO operatives and agents in enemy or enemy-occupied territory and at the base. These MO operatives and agents, though acting under direction and policies of MO, will conduct their activities under the administration and discipline of an OSS officer responsible for the operations of both MO and SO agents. Such activities will therefore call for the closest joint planning by the MO and SO staff personnel. D. The actual implements and channels employed in these operations are also not developed in this section, except by way of illustration. The actual means available to the MO section officer in each theater base, and they may vary greatly from one base to another, will determine by what direct and indirect media he will affect these operations. Some bases, some of the implements required for MO work, especially radio and printing facilities, may be assigned by the theater commander to a special combat propaganda unit not under the jurisdiction of the Strategic Services Officer. In this case, MO personnel, supplies, and equipments may be assigned to this unit to effect that part of the MO program requiring these implements. For effective action in this situation, the closest collaboration between the MO section officer in charge of the special unit is necessary. 32. Within the enemy's country. A. Dividing the enemy. The mission is to destroy unity among enemy groups and turn them to our side where applicable. You're not going to be able to turn everybody, and you don't want to turn some people to your side. Some people are just left best as belligerent assholes to deal with as belligerent assholes. The mission is to destroy unity among the enemy groups and people by alienating group from group, people from leaders, and nation from nation. A divided home front and split between enemy nations are major factors in enemy collapse. Divisive activities are most profitably carried on with greatest intensity following enemy military reverses or domestic crises, since at these times dormant splits begin to reappear. These divisive activities, whether on a local or on an international scale, concentrate on exploiting long-standing cleavages and issues. And while we are dividing the right up from the right, we should work on, where possible, unifying, reunifying the right and left together into one coherent structure. All right. And that means we're going to have to work on the right and on the left to do that. You're not going to be able to get everybody to do that. Work where you can, with who you can. But as far as the right goes, yes, we are dividing them up. Follow activities serve to divide group from group. Launching subversive radio, press, or rumor programs which attack one group, ergo the army, but do not attack and may even defend another group, ergo the party. Planting evidence of treason on political or military leaders by such means as sending compromising, decipherable messages by radio or telegraph. Having the individual in question receive especially favorable mention in clandestine leaflets, which will be picked up by the police. Arranging leaks in neutral countries by diplomatic personnel, revealing that selected individuals can be depended upon, spreading evidence to show that big industry industrialists are profiteering, spreading rumors that army divisions drawn from politically difficult areas are being sent to the politically difficult areas are being sent to the most dangerous fronts, spreading rumors that more members of a given group or class have surrendered or deserted to Allied forces than others. Minor leaders of a political or economic group which has grievances against other groups should be encouraged by bribery and persuasion to take a militant stance against the offending group. The possibility of simultaneously encouraging and bribing the second group to similar aggressive action should also be investigated. As you learn how to do this to the enemy, you're also learning how not to let the enemy do it to you. And I'm sorry, but the music that we have today is the non-copyrighted music, so it's not necessarily the best music of the time. 4. Tactics that divide people from leaders are spreading rumors that leaders are protecting their future by buying securities and durable goods in neutral countries, arranging for agents actually to purchase money, jewels, or precious works of arts in a neutral capital, then letting it leak that these are being brought for prominent leaders, introducing to the enemy country picture postal cards of famous castles and villas, and in the descriptive paragraphs, including such sentences as the recently purchased villa in Sweden of Harvon Ribbentrop is very similar in architectural design to this beautiful building, spreading subversive songs, jokes, cartoons which attack the government, sending tips to the secret police of alleged hoarding of black market operations, circulating reports that deplore or commend the brilliance of methods by which the sons and relatives of officials are avoiding the draft, getting easy jobs, buying restricted food. Where authentic evidence is available that some leaders are engaged in one or more of the illegal actions described above, opportunity should be put in their way for expanding these activities, to be followed by exposure or blackmail. 6. To divide nation from nation, the following activities are effective: exploiting incidents in which friction occurs between Axis soldiers from different countries, provoking fights and brawls wherever different Axis nationals come together, circulating reports that the reason for moving prisoners of war from one camp to another is enmity between the nationals, circulating rumors and reports of all cases in which forces of the stronger Axis countries desert the troops of weaker Axis members, circulating statistics of disproportionate casualties of the different nationals. When troops of one countries are quartered in another Axis area, exploiting all social problems, especially sexual, which inevitably arise, increase of juvenile delinquency, adultery, pregnancy, venereal diseases, circulating in one enemy country, political statements, jokes, and satires derogatory to it, which are ascribed to the nationals of another. Inducing panic in enemy populations. The mission is to augment feelings of insecurity, anxiety, and panic in enemy populations. Such a program is especially desirable just before a military offensive. But when a battle is not imminent, neurotic anxiety adds greatly to the political and administrative problems for the enemy. Further, the mental state of the civilians at home inevitably is communicated to men at the front through letters or via soldiers returning from furloughs, and thus a panicky civilian population helps to demoralize soldiers in combat zones. 2. Operations are preferred which augment normal fright reactions to war events, such as inducing sympathizers to scream hysterically in factories, scream hysterically in factories and shelters during air raids upon the publication of casualty lists, distributing small clandestine leaflets purporting to tell how to avoid alleged horrible consequences of incessant bombings, insanity and feeble mindedness, stunting of growth, various nervous disorders, sexual impotency or frigidity, sterility, miscarriage, deafness, blindness, spreading information on the methods of avoiding these terrible effects, say by recommending going to a doctor within 24 hours after a bombing for an examination whether the person appears to be injured or not. One of the most disorganizing civilian anxieties is a belief that there exists a widespread fifth column group. That's us. One of the most disorganizing civilian anxieties is the belief that there exists a widespread fifth column group, that there is no one in whose loyalty one can have faith. They're doing that to the left right now. To exploit this fear is dangerous, as it may result in reprisals on bona fide agents and sympathizers. When, however, a hysterical state can be so fostered that mob actions can be turned on civilians not in the underground, then this work is most effective. Displacement. Strengthening the enemy civilians' desire for peace and raising false hopes. The mission is to subvert the fighting spirit of the enemy civilians by causing them to agitate for peace and by raising false hopes. Any degree of success not only adds to the crippling of the enemy civilian war work, but communicates poor morale to the fighting forces. Enemy civilians who are susceptible to peace stimuli can be divided into two general categories. A. Those who are resistant to the regime and who use pacifist propaganda as cover to excuse their activities and protect them from charges of treason. B. Those who are loyal to the regime but sincerely desire peace. 3. To exploit both of these groups, clandestine agitation for peace should be kept on a lofty plane. It should not be complicated by tirades against enemy leaders. It should not be suspected as originating outside the country. Peace is urged as a desirable end in itself. You have to understand what false peace is as well. Because there are people who will induce you to keep a false peace. We have this going on right the fuck now. What does that mean? Everything's safe. Everything's fine. We want to keep the peace. And we're going to do everything necessary to keep the peace. Meanwhile, people are out killing your people, or rounding them up, or leaving them die in the streets, or refusing them food and medical care. That's not real peace. Don't confuse that with peace. What that is called is subjugation. Do not confuse peace for subjugation. We don't have a true peace. We have subjugation. To exploit both these groups, clandestines agitate for peace should be kept out of lofty plane. Okay. Peace is there, just desirable in and of itself. 4. Two major lines of action may be employed, playing up the horrors of war and exploiting the pacifistic or religious attitudes of civilians. Or the horror approach. Subversive pictures, for example, may be circulated of burned and mutilated soldiers asking, "Will your son or husband be next?" Save him from this by demanding peace. These pictures should be distributed ostensibly, say by a peace society made of enemy underground nationals. The maimed and crippled may be encouraged to display themselves in public as much as possible. A rumor may be spread that a certain shrine in a large city has miraculously cured war injured. All war injured are encouraged to make the pilgrimage to that shrine so that everybody in the area can see the procession of the injured. It's even better when you then give those people real medical care instead of just placebo. Religious pacifism is exploited by suggestion. For example, numerous small crosses may be distributed with the single word peace written thereon. A rumor may be spread that because of the appearance of a certain saint who also appeared shortly after the end of the last war, thousands of women are now praying for peace at noon every day, that being the hour designated by the saint. Reports may be circulated that certain women who have prayed for peace at a certain shrine in a large city have miraculously been spared death in the family. 7. Desire and action for peace will be increased if enemy civilians are made to believe that there is real evidence that peace is within immediate reach and not just subjugation. It is important that such evidences be confined to enemy territory. For example, reports may be circulated that engineers are already planning the conversion of enemy factories to peacetime production. 8. When the object of circulating evidence of peace is the raising of false hopes, it is necessary that the hopes raised be proved in due course to be actually false. The natural course of events may provide such proof. However, it is best to plan for the pricking of the bubble whenever possible. This may be accomplished in two ways. A. By circulating the evidences of peace at an appropriate interval before the occurrence of an actual event, secretly known to the OSS, which will prove the first reports of peace to be false. B. By following the first evidences of peace after an appropriate interval by new evidence which proves the first reports to be untrue. D. Subverting enemy civilian populations during ground offensive. 1. The mission is twofold. First, during offensive action, the enemy home territory to create such confusion and panic among civilians as will disrupt enemy military action and demoralize his troops. And second, to invite cooperation of war-weary civilians with our own invading forces so as to decrease our own military problems. 2. Demoralization and terrorization attacks on civilian populations in enemy countries can, if not immediately followed through by military conquest, have an unintended effect of consolidating the group, improving its morale, and making it more determined than ever. Therefore, all out terroristic operations should be carried out in areas that compromise the immediate objective of our armed forces. So, I really don't like using terror tactics against the civilians. I don't. It usually backfires, especially when bombs are used. And there's no reason to kill fucking civilians. Non-combatants should be left the fuck alone. So, I don't really want people terrorizing civilians. In the long run, in the long game, because we're going to have to live with these people because they're our family members, they're our countrymen. In the long game, terrorizing the population backfires seriously. Because again, I am living proof. It backfires. And it makes them hard to govern in the future. So I do not suggest terrorizing the civilian population, especially with bombs and violence and guns. When the proper time and place have been determined, sympathizers and agents may be instructed to create false air raid alarms, start street fighting and riots, spread rumors that the town will be utterly destroyed by bombings, and that Allied paratroopers have already landed in certain sections of the town, that enemy forces at one point have been utterly destroyed, that the enemy military at times, when their retreat seems imminent, have planted mines in all city streets and have polluted the water supply. At this time, a bribed police force is of particular value for augmenting or for not interfering with such disorders as may occur. Further, at this time, the police force is particularly susceptible to bribery and subversion since the police force knows it must remain in the town after the enemy troops have evacuated. And it will therefore be ready to be persuaded to change sides. 5. A terrorized civilian group threatens with the devastation of military action will, unless provided with a feasible and hopeful means of escape and positive courses of action to implement it, develop a back to the wall attitude and become a dangerous, consolidated adversary. That's where we are now. All feasible subversive means of providing hope should therefore be implied. For example, reports of fair treatment to which other enemy civilians have received at the hands of our forces may be circulated. Specific methods of signifying capitulation should be clandestinely circulated, such as staying indoors, displaying signs, flags, or reporting hidden stores. Frequently, during ground operations directed against an inhabited point, terrorization can be employed to exploit the tendency of a population to flee from such towns or cities. It is possible, through the use of rumors, both to speed up such pell-mell evacuation and to direct it along roads which the enemy would rather keep open and free from civilian traffic. And we are going to stop there. Our next section is 33, within enemy occupied or controlled territory, promotion of resistance and revolt against the enemy. That's going to be page 47. We will continue there.